Everyone they encountered was seen as an enemy. The first unfortunate resident they met was struck down instantly. As they moved deeper into the building, they learned about Zhang Yi's reinforced door, and decided to bring dynamite to destroy it. One of them lit the fuse. The explosion was massive, causing significant damage. The deafening blast jolted Zhang Yi awake. He immediately checked the surveillance cameras. On the screen, he saw construction workers from the neighboring building rushing over to investigate the scene. The attackers had been certain that the explosion would break through his door. But nothing happened. Enraged that these people dared to try and steal from him, Zhang Yi retaliated mercilessly. He hurled grenades and Molotov cocktails, eliminating the problem along with their cold. Those who attempted to seize his supplies were put to sleep by his Glock. However, with his ammunition running low, Zhang Yi realized the threats from the other buildings were getting closer. The sounds of gunfire and explosions terrified Yokier, but she suppressed her fear and focused on her work. Quickly, she explained the situation in the residents' group chat. The explosion had come from outsiders who tried to blow up Zhang Yi's apartment to loot his supplies. She announced that Zhang Yi had successfully repelled the attack and protected many residents. Everyone thanked him for his decisive actions. Zhang Yi then contacted Uncle Yu for more information. Uncle Yu revealed that a group from Building 26, led by Huang Tianfang, was attacking residents and stealing food. Just like Chen Zhang's gang. Zhang Yi stated that revenge was inevitable. They needed to prepare and unite the residents to fight back. Later, he confided in Yokier. He feared that their own neighbors might betray them at any moment. So he assigned Yokier a task. She and Uncle Yu were to gather intelligence on the factions from other buildings. 2 days later, Yokier, now dressed as a housemaid, reported her findings. The strongest group dominating the area was from Building 26, followed by a group from Building 21. 2 other groups were also powerful, but they had not made a move yet. Zhang Yi concluded that the other factions were already at war with each other, making them less of a threat to him. He praised Yokier for her efforts and instructed her to continue gathering information. Then, the group from Building 26 returned. This time, they attacked the residents of Zhang Yi's apartment complex. They left a chilling message. As long as Zhang Yi is alive, you will all die. News of this threat spread quickly, disturbing Zhang Yi and Yokier's peaceful moment. Panicked, the residents begged Zhang Yi to act. But he coldly sent a message back. Your lives mean nothing to me. Defend yourselves. Shortly after, Zhang Yi called Uncle Yu, telling him it was time to prove his worth. Then, in the residents' group chat, Zhang Yi revealed crucial information. The group from Building 26 only had 20 members. If everyone worked together, they could win. Desperate for food, the residents agreed to fight. They knew that Zhang Yi was the only one who still had strength, resources, and a plan. Seizing the moment, Zhang Yi offered his leadership. But under one condition. They must obey his orders. As long as his commands did not endanger their lives, they had no reason to refuse. To further motivate them, Zhang Yi presented a harsh choice. Take the risk and fight. Or wait for the group from Building 26 to come and slaughter them all. With Uncle Yu's encouragement, the residents reluctantly agreed. Zhang Yi also promised them a vehicle to search for food, strengthening his grip as their leader. At last, everyone chose to follow Zhang Yi, hoping they could survive the battle and secure their next meal. Now recognized as the leader of the building's residents, Zhang Yi decided to venture outside for the first time. Equipped with special cold-resistant gear, he felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. When Yokier asked to accompany him, Zhang Yi refused, ordering her to stay behind and guard the apartment. Before leaving, Zhang Yi stored all supplies in his dimensional space. Then, he leaped out of a window from a high floor, plunging into a massive snowdrift several stories deep. Fortunately, he had a snow vehicle inside his dimensional space, allowing him to travel smoothly. Upon reaching the Tianhui City police station, Zhang Yi smashed a window and entered to search for weapons and ammunition. Inside, he discovered frozen officers, victims of the first night of the catastrophic winter. With respect, Zhang Yi covered their bodies before continuing his search. He soon found a key. Using it, he unlocked every room in the station, including the armory. It was a paradise of weapons. Wasting no time, Zhang Yi transferred all the firearms and ammunition into his dimensional storage. Realizing that food was now the most critical resource for his dependent residents, he continued his journey using the snow vehicle. This time, heading to a shopping center. There, he dug through the snow-covered rooftop, smashed through the glass, and salvaged what little food remained. Though most of it was frozen solid, some could still be saved. After packing everything, Zhang Yi returned to the building. However, the leader of Building 26, envious of Zhang Yi's successful expedition, began plotting to steal his snow vehicle. Upon his arrival, Zhang Yi was greeted with joyous cheers. Even Uncle Yu, proud of him, called Zhang Yi a hero who had saved them all. Now armed with weapons and supplies, Zhang Yi issued a strict command. Anyone who takes food must be ready to follow my orders. Before long, the group from Building 26 arrived, demanding the supplies, threatening to slaughter the residents if they didn't surrender. But Zhang Yi ordered his people to fight back. He promised 5 days' worth of food to anyone who successfully defeated an enemy. Fueled by hunger and desperation, the residents fought fiercely, ultimately overpowering the attackers from Building 26. From the balcony, Zhang Yi and Yokier watched their victory unfold. Some of the enemy survivors fled, but many residents were injured. Yokier quickly realized treating them would drain their medical supplies and food, and Zhang Yi would never allow it. Instead, he turned the situation to his advantage. Those who had defeated the most enemies were rewarded with extra food. This strategy ensured that everyone remained motivated and under his complete control. One by one, the residents fell in line, obeying Zhang Yi, who stood firm, fully armed and in control of all food supplies. However, none of them looked happy. Then, Su Hao, a notoriously lazy man, complained about the unfair distribution of food. Zhang Yi simply kicked a single candy toward him. Su Hao's protests immediately stopped. The other residents, initially frustrated, began to feel better, realizing Su Hao's situation was even worse. Still believing he was being treated unjustly, Su Hao tried to defend himself, but Zhang Yi cut him off. Only results matter. Without mercy, Zhang Yi made an example of him. He ordered 2 residents to restrain Su Hao, then beat him in front of everyone. With cold finality, Zhang Yi declared, "Work earns food. No work, no rations." Afterward, Zhang Yi ordered Yokier to store the remaining supplies. Suddenly, Wang Qing and his sickly companion appeared, pleading that they had not yet received any food. Zhang Yi remembered them but immediately ordered Yokier to store the supplies, as there was not enough food for both of them. Fang Yuqing broke into tears, questioning why Zhang Yi no longer cared for her, after so many years together. As an answer, Zhang Yi slapped her hard, declaring that he never liked her. He then announced that he was now engaged to Yokier, who was far more valuable. The other women began mocking Fang Yuqing, calling her a gold digger who always used wealthy men for personal gain. Zhang Yi agreed, accusing her of always taking advantage of rich men. Su Hao then admitted to having slept with Fang Yuqing multiple times, prompting other men to join in, laughing at her. Humiliated, Fang Yuqing ran away, while her weak companion met an even worse fate. 2 men dragged him away to an unknown location. As a reward for his loyalty, Su Hao received a better meal, and swore to be even more devoted to Zhang Yi. After the incident, Zhang Yi reinforced the building's defenses. He divided the 47 residents into 6 teams, each assigned to guard the stairwells in shifts. Pamanu, the experienced military veteran, took charge of organizing them. As time passed, Zhang Yi carefully prepared weapons, explaining to Yokier that the winter disaster would last for at least a month, and that their greatest threat would be other survivors. With a sniper rifle stored in his dimensional space, Zhang Yi could eliminate threats without ever leaving his safe haven. Outside, he saw a group of people approaching the garage. They seemed intent on stealing the snow vehicle, but Zhang Yi had already secured it in his storage. Pamanu reported that the defensive teams were fully organized. He also mentioned Salimei, a woman known for talking too much, who had warned Zhang Yi not to take things too seriously. Zhang Yi smirked and mocked Pamanu, asking if he wanted to take care of another man's child, since strong men were precious in these harsh times. Noticing Pamanu's discomfort, Zhang Yi changed his tone, calling Salimei a good woman, and suggesting that if Pamanu truly cared for her, he should consider having children. Pamanu shook his head, reminding Zhang Yi, "There's no time for that in the middle of a disaster." He then refocused on his duties. Zhang Yi fell into deep thought. Then, he turned to Yokier, stating that the issue of having heirs needed to be carefully considered. That night, several people from Building 26 attempted to sneak into Building 25 to steal supplies. One of them was nearly beaten to death by the guards, when suddenly, a warning cry echoed through the halls. Enemy attack. A fierce battle broke out in the stairwell. The group from Building 26 was shocked by the strong defensive system of the building. Realizing they couldn't win, they retreated in panic. From his balcony, Zhang Yi watched their escape, tempted to fire a warning shot to remind them how foolish their attempt was. Smirking, Zhang Yi retrieved his sniper rifle from storage. Then, with calm precision, he fired a single shot, striking one of the retreating men in the head. His companions froze in horror, before scattering in terror. Zhang Yi felt an overwhelming satisfaction. With each perfect shot, in mere seconds, he eliminated 7 enemies. Now, he was certain. Every building around them knew the truth. Zhang Yi, the leader of Building 25, had a sniper rifle, and no one could defy him. The next morning, Yokier arrived with food. She asked about the gunfire from the balcony last night. Zhang Yi replied, unbothered. I shot and killed 7 people. Yokier merely admired his skill, without showing any unnecessary curiosity. She felt completely safe by his side. Zhang Yi praised her intelligence, appreciating her calm and unwavering loyalty. Meanwhile, the residents of Building 26 stared in horror at the bodies lying in the snow. Among them was the relative of their leader, Tianfen. His death, and the loss of valuable supplies, only fueled Tianfen's rage. Furious, he ordered his people to retrieve the bodies, but also ration their food even further. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi set out once again, his confidence at its peak. He knew that now, every survivor respected and feared him. With his headphones on, he remained in constant communication with Pamanu, assured that the building was secure in his absence. On the other side, the leader of Building 26 could only watch in jealousy, longing for Zhang Yi's snow motorcycle to help his people search for food. But the team he sent to steal it was quickly gunned down. Riding his snow motorcycle, Zhang Yi moved swiftly toward a warehouse storing imported vehicles and machinery. After smashing through the rooftop, he descended with a rope, immediately collecting everything useful. He stored it all in his limitless dimensional space. Though luxury cars held no value now, Zhang Yi believed that someday they might prove useful. Zhang Yi headed to a gas station to collect fuel. However, the entire station was buried under 10 meters of snow, making excavation impossible. Feeling defeated, he collapsed into the snow, his mind racing with thoughts of how crucial fuel was for his machines. But then, he suddenly realized something. He already had fuel, and even more than that, he had a massive excavator with just enough fuel to dig through the snow. With careful maneuvering, Zhang Yi cleared a path, breaking through the icy barrier to reach the gas pumps. There, he discovered the underground fuel storage tanks, still intact and unfrozen. With great caution, Zhang Yi sealed the tanks and stored them in his limitless dimensional space. Now, with both an excavator and a steady fuel supply, he could dig freely, unearthing anything buried beneath the snow without resistance. Meanwhile, back at the apartment complex, a young child fell into a high fever. Yokier tried to treat him, but soon realized they had no more medicine. Pamanu then stepped in, offering the last remaining medicine from Selimiai's child. He reassured the panicked mother, and after administering the medicine, the child's fever finally subsided. Yokier reminded the mother to continue monitoring her son's condition. But then, a piercing scream rang through the halls. In a fit of madness, Bibi Lin lunged at the baby. The mother threw herself forward, shielding her child, but was gravely injured in the struggle. Yokier acted quickly, managing to save the baby, but Bibi Lin, consumed by rage, screamed accusations at them. She blamed them all, claiming that since her own grandson had died, no other child had the right to live. With fierce determination, Yokier sprinted up the stairs, trying to escape with the baby. But Bibi Lin caught her by the leg. Yokier stumbled, her body slamming into the hard floor. Just as Bibi Lin prepared to strike again, Pamanu arrived. Without hesitation, he kicked Bibi Lin, sending her crashing down the stairs. To Pamanu, protecting the people, especially Zhang Yi's wife, was a duty he could never neglect. Even as she lay on the floor, Bibi Lin refused to accept reality, her rage undying. But Pamanu reminded her, they had survived only because of Zhang Yi. It was his leadership that had removed Qinzhang, the one who had once controlled them. Then, Yokier revealed the truth. After Qinzhang's fall, she had begged Zhang Yi to give medicine to Bibi Lin's grandson. But when she finally arrived with the medicine, it was too late. She found Bibi Lin standing over the boy's lifeless body. She had killed her own grandson, all to save herself. Bibi Lin screamed in fury, but the other male residents, gathering alongside Pamanu, only exchanged knowing glances. They whispered among themselves, with all that fat, she'd make a fine bonfire. Meanwhile, outside the apartment complex, Zhang Yi emerged from his tent, which he had set up near the gas station. He was ready to continue his exploration. Using the heavy machinery from his storage space, he dug deep, until he finally uncovered the city's military base. But it was empty. Every last supply and weapon was gone. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. There was only one possibility. The military leaders must have taken everything, preparing to seize control of the remaining survivors. If that was the case, Zhang Yi knew one thing for certain. He had to arm himself even more, because soon, he might have to fight them. As Zhang Yi continued digging, he accidentally broke through a wall and discovered an untouched armory. Without hesitation, he loaded all the weapons and ammunition into his limitless storage space. After spending a long time outside, he returned to the apartment complex in his snow vehicle, but without any food. His empty-handed return quickly led to complaints from several residents. Zhang Yi responded firmly, stating that he had searched all day and found nothing. If they were dissatisfied, he said, they were welcome to search for food themselves. The fact that they had gone one day without food made them feel wronged, even though Zhang Yi's efforts to protect the building had been taken for granted. However, some residents approached him, suggesting they could join him in searching for food, so that he could rest more often. A suspicious man with a hidden knife, along with his companion, attempted to negotiate with Zhang Yi. With a quick gesture, Zhang Yi disarmed the man, sending him crashing to the ground with a head injury. The man's companions immediately apologized, but Zhang Yi, without hesitation, shot them down. 4 of them fell motionless, while the rest fled through a window. The commotion attracted Pamanu and Yokier, who arrived with anxious faces. Zhang Yi declared the group as traitors, who deserved punishment, yet he showed mercy. Selimei, who had witnessed the incident, realized that Zhang Yi's mercy was merely a warning, a message to ensure no one else dared to repeat the betrayal. Zhang Yi returned to his room, his expression unaffected by the violence. In his mind, he realized that the number of useful outcasts he could manipulate was dwindling. Once home, Zhang Yi asked Yokier if anything had happened while he was gone. Yokier explained that Bibi Lin had gone mad after the death of her grandson and attacked a mother, but the situation had been resolved. Additionally, Chen Lingyu from another building wanted to speak with Zhang Yi, expressing a desire for cooperation. Zhang Yi grew curious about Chen Lingyu's intentions and asked Yokier for information. He learned that Chen Lingyu once ran a cosmetics company and now controlled Building 9. An impressive feat for a woman in these harsh times. Yokier suggested Zhang Yi speak directly to Chen Lingyu, who had reached out along with other building leaders. Zhang Yi contacted Chen Lingyu through text to ask about her purpose. Chen Lingyu revealed that they knew about Zhang Yi, his snow vehicle, and his power. She proposed that her 76 workers could use his snow vehicle to search for food, if Zhang Yi provided provisions up front. Chen Lingyu also warned that the neighboring buildings were preparing to unite against him, hinting that an alliance would be wiser. Feeling irritated by the veiled threat, Zhang Yi asked what would happen if he refused. Chen Lingyu plainly stated that if he declined, Zhang Yi would become the target of a unified assault from all the surrounding buildings. Zhang Yi requested time to think it over and ended the call, contemplating that while his building was secure, it could still be destroyed if all the other buildings joined forces against him. Shortly after, Zhang Yi received a call from Lian, the leader of Building 18, who proposed an alliance. Lian explained that his building had managed to stabilize its residents, cooperating to share resources. He offered to help Building 25 fight against the other buildings in exchange for the supplies they needed. After asking Yokier, Zhang Yi learned that although Building 18 was united, their resources were strained due to their large population. Zhang Yi realized he needed time to think, but more messages flooded his phone. He muttered to Yokier that he might have to kill all of them. Deep inside, Yokier felt satisfied with his choice to follow Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi then asked Yokier for his opinion. Should they collaborate or crush everyone? He also instructed Yokier to cut the bulletproof padding to attach to his own legs. Zhang Yi's plan was becoming clearer. He gathered the residents of Building 25 and informed them that their neighbors threatened to attack if his snow vehicle wasn't surrendered. If that happened, he warned, they would all have to search for food alone. Upon hearing this, the entire building's residents stood behind Zhang Yi, ready for a fight. Some time later, Zhang Yi was invited to a group chat of the neighboring building leaders. Inside the chat, the other leaders threatened Zhang Yi, declaring that if he refused their demands, he would become the common enemy of all the buildings. They presented their terms, expecting Zhang Yi to submit to their will. However, Zhang Yi had a brilliant plan. He agreed to cooperate, but with a long-term strategy to eliminate all the building leaders. Without leaders, the remaining residents would be unable to unite against him. Zhang Yi coordinated his plans with his followers in the building. He provided them with quality food and motivation, assuring them that if everything went smoothly, food scarcity would never be a problem again. The residents' morale soared. They began to idolize Zhang Yi as their savior, ready to do anything for him. Zhang Yi decided to lead all the residents through the tunnels toward the meeting point. However, from a distance, he sensed something suspicious. There were too many people gathered there. He ordered Pamanu and the other residents to join the crowd, while he remained hidden, setting up a long-range rifle. At the meeting site, Pamanu and the residents of Building 25 faced the neighboring building leaders and their groups. One of the residents noticed that the other groups didn't seem interested in negotiating. It felt like they were there to destroy. Pamanu explained that the groups from Buildings 26, 5, 21, 9, and 18 wanted Zhang Yi to cooperate, believing that attacking his group would lead to nothing but losses. They were confident, certain that, even if Zhang Yi was formidable, facing so many opponents would be impossible to win. One of the leaders even mocked Zhang Yi, assuming he must be terrified by their overwhelming numbers. The situation seemed to favor them. Tianfang shouted for Zhang Yi to come out and negotiate. Pamanu reminded them that a leader should only meet with a leader. If they wanted a discussion, they had to come closer. Chen Lingyu and the others questioned whether they were foolish to challenge them. Were they not afraid of death? The tension thickened. Zhang Yi contacted Pamanu, warning him to create some distance from the other groups. Using his quick thinking, Pamanu signaled his group to step back, making sure there was a safe gap. With enough distance created, Zhang Yi gave a signal with a whistle. In an instant, a grenade was thrown into the midst of the enemy group. A massive explosion tore through the area, behind the enemy leaders, spreading chaos and destruction. Standing behind the stunned leaders, Uncle Yu connected his phone to a speaker and asked, "Do you still have any questions for Zhang Yi?"